Hi and welcome. Today we'll be installing Git on your machine for use in courses at WSU Tech. As this is a quick setup guide, we'll be glossing over specifics, but if you're curious to know more, you're welcome to email my instructor email in the description below, or there are plenty of resources online. First, we're going to install a terminal emulator to interface with Git. If you're running Linux or Mac, your system will have one pre-installed, so you can skip on to the next section of this video. If you're running Windows, however, you'll want to open a browser of your choice and go to gitforwindows.org. You can simply click the download button on the main page, and if you're running Firefox, you can start it directly from here. Running a Chromium-based browser, you can start it from down here. Otherwise, you can launch it from your Downloads folder. You will need to give it elevated permissions. If you are borrowing a laptop from WSU Tech, you'll want to contact IT to get this installed. Since I already have Git Bash installed, I'll just point out the things worth changing from the default install options. The first one is the Git Bash here Windows Explorer integration. That is very useful. The next one, you should set this to Notepad. And the last one should be enable symbolic links. Once you're done with that, go ahead and click install. Alright, and we're all set up. You can launch Git Bash at any time by typing in Git Bash into your start menu. On Mac, you should be able to click the Launchpad icon on the dock and type terminal into the search field. If you're running Git Bash, you will not see something like this. I have some configuration options set to custom. But let's go ahead and check its install. You can use the command echo and give it any phrase. We're going to say hello world. And it's printed it out. That means we're looking good. If you're on Mac, you can confirm you have Git installed by running Git in the terminal. If this help message doesn't print, your system should ask if you want to install it. Moving on, we're going to set up a GitHub account. If you don't have one set up already, it is free. All you need to do is create your own. It doesn't matter what email you use, but please remember which email you do. I will be using my personal account. Once you have one set up, we're going to be setting up an SSH key by going to Settings and clicking on our SSH and GPG keys. If you have a new account, this section will be empty. We'll want to go down to the guide generating SSH keys and click on the header generating a new SSH key and adding it to the SSH agent. We will not be adding it to the agent today, but we will be needing this one command without the leading $sign. Then we simply paste our command into the terminal, replacing our email placeholder with the email we used when setting up our GitHub account. Then you'll want to enter a file in which to save your SSH key. Pressing enter will use the default location, which is perfectly fine, and that's what I'll be doing. Hitting enter will leave you with no passphrase, allowing you to use it insecurely. However, I encourage you to set one up. Since Mac and Linux also use Bash, any of the commands that we're using today in this terminal should work on all of the other systems. I won't do a lot of explaining on the commands, but I will say what they are. Let's start by changing directory to .ssh, and we'll list all of the items in this directory, which should be the two files we generated with the command above. We have our private key and our public key. The private key should be sent to nobody, ever, at any time, and should only stay on your computer. The public key is what we will be giving out to GitHub and anybody else who wants to receive secure messages from us. So we'll use the command cat plus our file name to give our key. We can select this and Control-C to copy it. We can go back to our SSH keys page, create a new key, paste our key in, and then give it a title. I'll just give it Matthew at git test. We'll go test git actually, test git. And we'll add our SSH key. You should be able to see it here with your name, a hash for your key, when it was added, and that it was never used. Okay. So before we move on, we'll need to set some configuration options. We'll be using the command git config and giving it a tag of global. The first thing we're going to set is our email by using user email. This should be the same email that you use to set up GitHub. I'm going to make this longer so it's all in one line. The next command we'll do is our username, which is the name that we set up for email. You can use the up arrow key on any terminal emulator to grab the previous line. For those of you not using Git Bash, you want to set your default editor here. You can do that by setting your core editor to whatever you want. I encourage you to try Vim, but it does have a learning curve, so any default editor will work. If you're on Windows, we'll be using Notepad. And last but not least, we will use the default branch of main. Okay, so that's all of our configuring out of the way. Let's get to making a new repository. We'll use the command cd again with no arguments to go to our home directory. We'll make ourselves a new directory called test.git. We'll change directory into there, and we'll initialize a new Git repository. You can see here that there's something after our path, which means that we have a Git repository and that we're on the branch main. If we git status right now, we won't see anything, so let's go ahead and add something. We'll add a file .readme, or add a file called readme.md, and we'll say hello git inside of it. We'll save and exit out of this file. We can check the file contents by using cat again. That's looking good. And then if we do git status, we can see that we have an untracked file named readme.md. Let's go ahead and stage that file for commit. So we can use git add and then the file name. If we use git status again, we'll say that we'll see that this is a change it to be committed. It's a new file titled readme.md. We can go ahead and commit those changes. And if we git status, we can see that our working tree is clean. Wonderful. So we've done all of our offline work. Now we need to push to GitHub. We can use this button up here to go back to our home. And we can use the button here to make a new repository. We'll simply be titling it test git. We will not be giving it a description. We'll be setting this to private just because I don't want people to see it. And everything else can stay default. The only thing that we'll need is this top part. If this URL starts with git at GitHub, we're looking good. If it starts with HTTPS, that means that somewhere, whenever you were configuring your SSH keys, something went wrong. Go back and check it, and come back here. We'll make sure that our SSH key button is pressed. It should say git at github.com, your username, and then the name of your repository. We'll go ahead and copy this URL, go back to our terminal, and we'll use the command git remote add origin and paste in our URL. This is just saying that we're adding a remote URL called origin referencing this remote repository. That doesn't mean a lot right now, but it will in the future. Then all we need to do is push our code to GitHub by using git push origin main. Origin references our remote and main references our branch. If for some reason your branch changes, changes or you're using master, this would change to master. And if you named your remote something different, you would change it here as well. If this is your first time pushing to GitHub, it is going to ask if you want to save GitHub's fingerprint. We'll say yes, and we've pushed perfectly fine. Awesome. Let's go ahead and reload. And we can see that our Git file contents, or our file contents, is here. Perfect. That is a super quick crash course on how to set up Git. And if you guys have any questions, you're welcome to email me in the instructor email in the description below. Have a great day.